Welcome everyone. I'm Dr. Alessio. I'm an assistant professor at the University of Birmingham. I'm a chartered accountant and auditor since 2009, a master in law, and now also pursuing my second PhD in AI. So I would be very happy to share with you my insight and tests that I performed in the field of accounting, in particular, and in audit, for the applications of tools like GPT and others. So the session today will be focused on AI in financial assurance and control functions. So as per the expectation, this session will not explore only hypothetical AI features, but it focuses on systems and on systems currently being integrated into assurance functions. We will examine where machine-generated output can mislead, where the control framework needs reinforcement, and what professional safeguard at risk. The intention is not actually to glorify, either mystify the AI, but cautiously use it and use its insertions to point and analyze behavioral risk and in accounting systems. So there are some aspects that can help, some others that we need to be careful of. Let's focus on the foundations of accounting then. Whenever you have questions, please feel free. We will also have a Q&A session at the end. So the most important thing is the introduction of the model. We need to know what the models are, how they work, because the magic that we can see when the models generate an output, when they generate text, pictures, results, graphs, and whatever, is led by something that is not a logical system. It's not descriptive or deterministic. Is led by the probability. So first of all, we know that the results provided are the results of probability. They are not sure 100%. This is because it depends on the training that the model received, on many factors: the training, the capacity, the way in which we have we need to ask the questions that are called prompts, and so forth. In particular, accounting has always operated on defined logic. So as you see, since the beginning, the model is deviating from its own nature. Because if you have a model which is running on probability, that tends to be applied and tends to be applied to a model which is logical, it might not work. So we have in accounting principle like double entry, which is the model, the method. We have accrual principles, we have fixed assets, fixed audit rules, and we have a lot of models. So in terms of rules, yes, it can work very well because we can train the system, but the situation we need to bookkeep or we need to audit, they are all usually contextualized in different cases. So GPT and similar models actually operate on an entirely different basis, which is token prediction. We will see later what the tokens are in practice. And they simulate actually possible language patterns and not rules. It creates tensions then because symbolic logic ensures reproducibility, so we can repeat and repeat the process, while statistic and induction, which is the probability actually, prioritizes the linguistic coherence. So the context and the output look very good in terms of text. It looks natural because it's led by the natural language processing. It looks very interesting. It looks competent, but we are not sure if the result is truly good. So in audit terms, this shift complicates a lot the traceability and the consistency of the results. So the AI model, they are probabilistic, but accounting and audit themselves, they are followed by logic. So this is the first bias that we can observe. Then we can focus on the explainability and reproducibility in deterministic and probabilistic models. So traditional tools produce identical results for identical inputs. I don't know if you ever try to ask the same question twice to GPT or any other one. You will see that the result might be different. And I will tell you, This depends on the model you are using. It depends on the way you ask the question, but even if you ask the question, if you are using this in your workspace, one, in without the model being adapted to your style of writing, so the results will be completely different. Sometimes I ask GPT itself, so what is my writing style, my prompting style, my expectation? And it explains that usually I prefer the output in British English instead of American English. It prefers the output which might be very structured, that should be referenced and so forth. But if someone else asks the same question from scratch without having interacted with the model, the output will be very standardized and very basic and probably not even very correct. So same input, same result is expected by audit and accounting. So we cannot question too much if you are applying one accounting standard or one audit standard on another. The rule is the rule. But the probabilistic output is led by entropy and stochastic variation. What does mean stochastic variation? Probability, inference. Okay, so we have some guesses from the model. And there is another very big challenge. So imagine if the model is trained by 10 documents that are correct, that are incorrect, and one which is incorrect. Of course, the model will prefer the ones which is more frequent, so the incorrect ones instead of the good one, which is the main relevant source. Okay, so we can see then already we have some biases, but I don't want to criticize the model. I just want to share with you what are the limitations. Okay, so let's go through something more interesting that you might not have studied so far. So you see, when you type in GPT or in any other AI, generative AI, the text that you are prompting, the text you're writing there is tokenized, which is here, you see on the right. So it's colorful here. So in this case, this sentence, which is the sentence itself of this slide, you see, this is the text of the slide, which is tokenized, is divided into different colors. Each one is a token. Okay, so but the token itself in the bottom side of the slide here is nothing than a number. Okay, so if we unveil, you see, if we select instead of text, we select token IDs, these are numbers. So they do not make sense for us, but they make sense for the system. So every single part of the word or punctuation or entire word is tokenized. So it's turned into numbers. And this is the only way how the system works. It's a machine. We cannot expect that our washing machine is talking to us because it's not programmed to do that. We cannot expect that GPT will have emotions because it's not trained to do that. It's just processing numbers. It's programmed based on previous patterns to give you something that is pleasing you based on the context that you are using. So, and you see, tokens doesn't mean characters, doesn't mean words, because, for example, tokenization, you see, is just one word. It's made of 3, 6, 9, 12 characters, but it's made of two tokens. You see, the green one and the orange one. So why? Because the word is identified in two different chunks of codes. Okay, so imagine now when you are talking and you are chatting online, or you are, or you are interacting with a prompt with GPT. Now you will imagine that while you are prompting, automatically the system will turn this into a token. Okay, a number of tokens. So, but the token should be saved, let's say, because the system is not unlimited. So you might have noticed that if you process something very difficult, it might take more time to process the answer. And if you ask too big questions or too complex tasks, the output might be poor. And this is because of the limit of the model. The limit in terms of quantity, which is the tokens that are available. So, for example, just to give you an idea, ChatGPT, which is the most trained one at the moment, as far as I understood based on my experience. ChatGPT can process 100, which are not so much. One, once I mean processing, it means the prompt and the answer itself. So you might make a very big prompt, and this prompt will use a lot of tokens. And then the output, you cannot expect a big output because you already consumed a lot of tokens. Or vice versa, you can make a very short question, so it absorbs a few tokens. At the same time, the output might be very big because still some tokens are available. But let's imagine this case. First of all, we need to realize that the model is trained in which language? In English. So if we prompt in Arabic, or like in my case, if I try to prompt in Italian, okay, so the system will waste a lot of tokens because first of all, the system will try to do one thing, try to translate from Arabic to English. Then it in some only few tokens are remaining, okay, and it process the answer. And then the few tokens left are used to translate again into your own language. So in your case, in Arabic. So that's why when I ask people to prompt in English, I'm not saying this because I just prefer English or something, but I try to optimize your results. So you might still bypass this challenge because you might ask the system first in a step-by-step way to ask, first of all, okay, translate my Arabic sentence into English. Then, once it's translated, you copy-paste and you process that question in English directly. The output will be in English, and then you make another prompt once again to translate back again into Arabic, and the result might be much more meaningful, much more reliable, okay? Because all the tokens are maximized for each prompt. So you have a big chunk of activities, divide and split it into smaller ones, because in that case, you will maximize the use of the token. Then there is the vectorization, so conversion into high dimensional vectors. So in this case, we'll be try to convert and try to create the prediction. If we have trained the model that the cat is on the table, the cat is on the table, the cat is on the table, of course, if we write the cat is on, the system will reply table. I will repeat the exercise. Okay, so if I say 3 times the cat is on the table and 1 time the cat is on the sofa, still the model will prefer the probabilistic way. So it prefers table instead of sofa because sofa was appearing once and table was appearing 3 times. So it's more likely, as per the system, to write table rather than sofa, even if it's possible that the cat could be on the sofa. So attention, weighting based on relevance, not meaning. So whenever we are writing, the system will try to understand the context. So imagine a model that was trained with thousands, millions of documents. We cannot expect that the model will read once again before answering you all these documents that were used to train. So we'll try to get some keywords. We'll select the documents that will be more associated with that specific context, and then we'll try to, with few documents that are most considered more relevant based on the word association, we'll try to give you more results. But still, it's not even enough because, we still have to talk about the temperature. The models now, they're giving some options. So you can choose the temperature. Also, it's not something that is a human, but the temperature in the case of AI is something related to the randomness. So we want the model to be unleashed, okay? So not to be too much constrained with to only few documents that are truly, truly relevant. So we want sometimes the model to be innovative. But in the case of audit, we don't want to be innovative. We need to be very standardized. So the temperature should be very low, should be predictable because we need to use and follow rules. We cannot use an erratic and very high temperature. So when we set the model, we need to choose temperature very low. But still, it's not even enough because, I still remember, and I always talk about this, report, the FRC in the UK, so which is um, the organism, the auditors themselves, is always complaining about, for example, that the audit reports are boilerplate, so they are always using the same words. It's just a copy. So in that case, what happens if we add a little bit of temperature? In terms of context, in terms of keywords that will be used, that will be changing. Okay, but are we sure that the context and the content that is produced is properly correct? So we cannot afford losing, in our case, losing reliability just for the benefit of making a report fancier or more appealing in terms of wording. It's better to be standardized sometimes, right? So I want to show you here. If we click here, it's up to you. You can make the same attempt. If you click on this website, which is the OpenAI one, is the tokenizer. So the source where I generated that specific picture. Okay, so for example, I can write some text. I can write, I am Alessio. My name is Alessio. I come from Italy. I live in the UAE. Okay, so and voila, the name is split into different parts. Okay, so if I unveil the numbers, you will see that the numbers are different as per every single token. But if I write, for example, Alessio, ciao, ciao, we'll see once again that even in this case, ciao, it might be associated with these two specific tokens. So you see the word ciao here is exactly the same because it's repeated twice. You can see it's matching again. Okay, so, and what is this one? It might be a comma, it might be a space, and so forth. So if we unveil again the text, you will see that this is the word A, okay? LESS is the same, and IO is the same, and so forth. So it's just colored differently. So this is the main important pillar to understand the mechanism of how AI works. Because we are using something which is led, we are working in a field which is led by the logic, by the rules, and this model is predicting something. So it might be eventually more accurate, more useful in the world of finance when we need to discount future flows, we need to make prediction, we need to estimate the future cash flow. So in terms of prediction, it's very good. But in terms of audit and accounting, the interpretation starts becoming quite challenging. So if you don't mind, we will move to the section number 2. Do you have any questions so far? Is there any question?
Thank you.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I have a question. So
yes, sure.
basically, I'm Kamal this time. So basically, what you're saying is that when we are trying to make the AI predictive, we are giving them common or near about nuances of the same information, which the AI converts into words or tokens or characters.
Yes.
And then it's able to recall those same characters when we try to ask the question. Is that what
Yes.
I'm understanding? Is that correct?
Yes, great question that allows me to dive deeper into the topic. Okay, so we say the models are different. Okay, so we might use Gemini AI, we might use DeepSeek, we might use GPT, and so forth, and not even the same version. Then each model was trained with different documents. Okay, and we don't know which documents they were used. So I'm not sure that you will trust eventually Wikipedia, but I'm sure you will trust for example, the IFRS issued by the AISB. Okay, so the two documents as a comment in Wikipedia and the official source from the IFRS, from the IASB, they are completely different, right? But for the model, there is no understanding of which one is official, which one is not official. We have the first question mark. So are we sure that the model is using an official source? Are we sure that the model will select the source? Because the model quickly should select the source associated with the keywords that you are using. So if you are using, for example, this sequence of number here, okay, plus the sequence of number here in this perfect chronological position, then the model will select one document instead of another. Just because it was led by an algorithm, like, for example, when we search, for example, in Google Scholar, it will associate the keywords that are related to that specific paper. Okay, so in this case, first of all, the first question mark is that we are inputted something, but we don't know the sources. And for this one, we can have a solution, because I will show you, for example, we can open GPT. Okay, so I will just need to move this one. We can open GPT, then we can select Explore GPT. This can be done also with Copilot. Okay, you can create a new model yourself. Once you create, for example, I can say, okay, I want to create a model here. So we will do it live. So that's why, as I said, it's not theoretical, it's more practical, okay? I can create a model here and I say, oh, create the introduction of the financial statement accounting notes of a financial statement. So notes automatically based on the IFRS. And now it will start generating and updating a custom GPT. This is called custom because we are training the model. Of course, you cannot do this with the basic version, the free one. You need an advanced one, but it's possible. So now it's creating this one. Now I say IFRS Note Composer. Okay, I'm okay with the title. Okay, and this is, we are approaching the best of the model itself. Okay, so creating the introduction of the notes of a financial statement might be boring, might be boilerplate, might be copy paste, and might be adaptable, of course, to that single thing. Okay, so now it's generating the profile picture. This is a fancy task that we can eventually skip, but I will keep doing it. And then once it's done, we will go to the configuration. So now this is the picture, it can be changed, we don't care now. Now we go to the configuration, and this is when the beauty of the things can do. First of all, since we don't know which kind of documents were used to train the model, first of all, I will remove the web search. Then I don't need image generation in this case. I might add the code interpreter, but the most important thing is the knowledge base. So now, for example, I can upload here the IFRS. Okay, so for example, I can have, let me see, is in the desktop if I'm not wrong. Yes, okay, I can have also the IFRS in Arabic. Let me upload this one. Now, I don't need very big thing. I need the conceptual framework and the AIS one, okay? For the notes in general, for the introduction. So I'm training actually the model by uploading the official sources from the IFRS. Okay, so now the model is trained. Okay, so once this is uploaded, and I'll go back to create. Now this model is created. I will type only the name of the company. When is possible, I will also upload move this one. I will also upload the balance sheet and income statement only if available. And the GPT should start writing the introduction of the nodes automatically without any instructions. Now it will update the GPT with this instruction. You see, updating GPT. Now I can move on the right. Okay, I can move on the right, and eventually I can share also this model later with you. Now, let's say I want to do I will type the company, I don't know, for example, ADNOC, okay, oil and gas distribution. No PS balance sheet and income statement available. Okay, we will process this question and you will see that now it's searching the knowledge based on the information is this one. Based on the preparation of COMPAT, these financial statements have been prepared in accordance with the IFRS issued by the IASB. ADNOC is an entity engaged in distribution oil and gas products. Financial statement cover the reporting, and you just need to import the report and so forth. This is the introduction, which is crafted directly using only the knowledge that we have here and only few information regarding ADNOC, of course. Make sense? Am I answered your question?
Yes, you have answered my question.
It's
Okay,
amazing.
perfect.
And one thing I was just wanting to confirm, you mean
Sure.
if I want this GPT or this AI to tell me what is the share price or what should be my market movement, I can feed it Warren Buffett book, or I can feed it
Exactly.
all those.
You can also upload ISAs, okay, for example, and say, okay, give me a preliminary audit of these nodes based on the ISAs. Are they complete? And then it starts working. I train the model with another thing, because, for example, I'm very keen on fraud examination, okay? I train the model by uploading the manual of fraud examiners, okay? Because I'm a member of ACFI, I downloaded the book, I genuinely downloaded the book because I'm a member. Now, for example, that I can create this model, okay? I can share it with everyone. So, for example, I can put it in the GPT store, okay? And then anyone with a link, okay? In this case, in the GPT store, I will update, and then anyone that has GPT can search for this one and can use it. For example, now that I created this one, which is very basic, but still I can share it with you. Now, since it's updated, there's unsaved changes now, it's done. Now I can copy the link and I will paste it now in our chat, and you can already access it if you want. So anyone that with this link can start creating the introduction of the nodes based on a very reliable model, because you know we trained it with the official sources that are the IFRS framework and IFRS 1, AIS 1 and IFRS 1. Okay, makes sense? I will show you the other model that I created, for example, and I'll show you how it was created. So, for example, I created this one, FIDI contract expert. I uploaded the FIDI contract. I have the for example, to create a specific contract clause for a specific industry based on the FIDIC. I created the fraud examiner companion. I uploaded there the manual of fraud examiner. I'm asking to examine a contract if it's prone to specific fraud in terms of internal audit and so forth. Makes sense? I can see one question, one raised hand. Yes, please. Mohammed? Feel free to ask. You are muted.
Yes, thank you very much, Alessio, for the detailed one.
Welcome.
I am looking at a couple of questions. Number one, if you have the financials for the year, for a certain year, for a certain period, can we throw into the chat GPT and ask the chat GPT to create a forecast for the next 6 months? And considering the next 6 months was really healthy, the another 6 months for the forecast for the next 6 months.
Okay.
The numbers, what has been created from the actuals, from the financials, audited financials.
I can tell you, if you turn the financial statements into an Excel sheet that is ordered in terms of series of data that are treated like math, not financial statements, then the prediction will be quite accurate. And of course, the forecast will fall any model that you might even instruct the model. So you might say, oh, using regression, create the forecast. Okay. But if you expect GPT can understand financial statements, I can tell you, I made, unfortunately, all the possible attempts and it's not working. And this is the main reason why I started my second PhD, because I want to develop a system which will be based basically on an XBRL taxonomy that should be standardized everywhere then after that, that can help, crafting the financial statement automatically in a codified way, not only difference, because now at the moment the standard and the taxonomy are very basic and they are just grouping all the clusters based on the activities. Like we have generic one like tangible asset, intangible asset. But the companies, they can be related to different types of industries, so they might use different names of accounts and other things. So the model, unless it's very accurate, at the moment, none of the AI is perfectly trained for understanding financial statements. So if the question is, I will upload the financial statement, I will ask the forecast, it doesn't work. If you tell me I will upload the XBRL and you train first a custom GPT on the current XBRL taxonomy, still it will give you a result, but not very accurate, not very detailed, because of course it's clustered too much and aggregated results, not with a trial balance, for example. Make sense?
Absolutely. Thank you very much. In case if we can insert it, for example, as you've given an example of the fixed assets, for example, I say this particular fixed assets, we have the 4 categories.
Yes.
4 of them, we define it saying that this particular fixed assets is 5 years, the next one is 7 years, the next one is 10 years. Will that make sense to calculate it easier for the system to understand?
Where you just said something that I anticipated before. So if you contextualize, if you explain very well every specific aspect, then the system will understand. But understand because you are not explaining, but you are guiding the system to find the right tokens, okay, and the right documents that can be used. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
And you can be even more accurate if you can train it with for example, a book in accounting, okay, something like this that can be associated very quickly to the right topic. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Good. I believe now the questions are completed for this one. So can we move to the next topic? Anyway, so if you have other questions, you can ask at the end eventually. Okay. So let's move on. Okay, so I will make full screen. I hope you can see the full screen. So now we'll move to the model behavior. Okay, so the hallucination and misclassification, because so far we say, okay, can we do that? And I just say the yes or no, or I'm not expecting good things or not. Now we will explain exactly what an hallucination is. That means hallucination is an answer which is confident but fabricated. Okay, so that means completely fake, completely invented, something that does not exist. Okay, so you can even ask the model, draw me a fish that flies. Okay, it will put the wings to the fish. Okay, but it does not exist. That's just because it needs to please you, and it's creating this prediction based on the direction that you are giving the model. Okay, so it does not verify and double check if the result itself is good or not. For example, at the beginning, I wanted to be very clever, like everyone. I say, this is very good. I can ask GPT to create a literature review of a book, okay, or create a literature review of a scholar article. And you know what it was doing, and still doing it, is starting associating a list of references with the name of the authors that I have wrote something on that topic, adding the title of that is fancy for the topic that you are researching, adding a journal which is in the field of the topic. So it looks perfect. Then you double check in Google Scholar and you see that reference does not exist at all. Okay, because it's trying to mix and match things to make you happy. So hallucination is this one. And hallucination is also another case. So if you're trying to ask GPT, I cannot do it because I already trained it on this topic. So but if you ask GPT, oh, can you check examples of disrupting innovations? GPT, among them, will start listing Uber. Then you verify the theory from Christensen, that was the inventor of this theory. And then Christensen himself said, Uber is not disrupting innovation. But since ignorance in the world spread the news that Uber is disruptive, and this misconception of the use of the word disruptive, then GPT associates Uber with the disrupting innovation, which is absolutely not disruptive. So you trust again the mass instead of the quality of the information. Okay, so it's triggered by randomness, ambiguity, or incomplete prompts. As we said, incomplete prompts sometimes is your fault. It's not the model fault. If you don't add specific keywords, if you are not using accurate words, let's take the case of accounting once again, because it's familiar to us. So if I say, provide me a list of costs that this company can face. Eventually, cost, it might list both assets and expenses, okay, because we are not using the right word. But if we were thinking about only expenses in the income statement, we should have used the word expenses, because a cost is also a tangible asset, because it's a cost, but it's still not accrued in the period. But sometimes it's the user which is not skilled in prompting the right words. Once again, another example that I can make you, because this is something coming from the practice, the very early practice that I did at the beginning, since 2 years ago, At the end of the day, it's your knowledge which is guiding the model. Okay, so we have to be frank on this. So if you don't know a topic, you will start from scratch. Okay, so you can use the GPT only for brainstorming. But brainstorming doesn't give you the knowledge. And then the knowledge which is provided might not be accurate because it's not based on reliable documents. So once again, you need to predict yourself what should be in the answer. So you might say, okay, so why it's needed? Still, it has a role in this sense because it's typing faster than us, okay? So I don't like typing hours, it will be typed by the system. Eventually, I will change only the few things that I do not agree with or they are completely wrong. Or I just take my time to verify and double check instead of studying, writing, and then formatting, for example. So you see, the model is still very good for us because the work of bookkeeping, but in particular also audit and accounting in general, is a very lengthy process. So if we can save time, of course, we will be more than happy to use these aspects, right? So the reliability of the AI-generated audit content, then, it depends. It depends if you uploaded all the rule books, if you uploaded the documents to be analyzed, if you explain which part of the documents should be considered according to which rule and according to which theory, for example. In that case, the output generated, it's more likely to be very good. But as I said, every time you run the same prompt, the answer might be not even very reliable. So that's why, for example, I created with GPT, by the way, I created one Chrome extension. Look at this one. I created this one, which is prompt auditor. So if I prompt something here, okay, so analyze provide the list of the most recurring costs in a financial statement of a manufacturing company. Before running this prompt in GPT, I check the prompt. So in this case, the prompt is very good. So the score is 9 out of 10. The hallucination risk is very low. And there is no clear instruction delimiter, but we don't care. Why is precise? Because I contextualize. But if I say provide a list of the most recorded, yes, please.
So you are not sharing the screen, huh?
Oh, okay, sorry. Okay, so I thought it was sharing, so maybe stop sharing. Can you see?
Now, yes. Thank you.
Okay, so I was writing here. Thank you for letting me know. As I said, I created this prompt auditor. I will run the system again. Okay, so I say provide a list of the most recurring costs that can be identified in a financial statement of a manufacturing company. So you see already that we contextualize a lot. I mentioned, for example, the keywords of financial statement, manufacturing, cost. I asked a specific thing to provide a list and so forth. And the prompt, as you see, is scoring very high. So the hallucination list is low. But if I say only list of recurring costs in financial statements, I removed a lot of things in financial statements. I check the prompt again, and you see the score is reduced. Or I say only cost in financial statement. You see, the prompt is scoring much lower. Prompt too short to establish context, prompt lacks of actionable verb, no clear instruction delimiter. Makes sense? If you want, I can share with you this one. You can install it in your Google Chrome if you like it. So I will Google Chrome web store. So you can find it. The web store is available there. It's called, in this case, it's called Prompt Auditor. Okay. Okay. So is this one? I will share it with you. Okay. So share and copy the link. I will share it in our chat. You can use it anytime. Okay. So let me go back to our slide. Is there any question on this one? Is there any question?
No, no questions.
No, it's
Okay.
good. Thank you very much.
Perfect. So let's move on. Need to understand how to move this slide because it looks stuck. Okay, so it was working but lagged. Need to go back and I will need to zoom again. Now we're talking about the misclassification in the context of audit. So when AI flags irrelevant risks, something that are not relevant, but still it's mentioned by the system. Like I said, for example, it's mentioning among the list of disrupting innovation, the case of Uber, which does not exist, okay, which is not matching the theory. So AI does not understand, we say, the nature of audit anomalies, okay, in general. It just tries to predict what might follow based on, for example, prior language structure. And this creates usually a risk of false positives. Okay, so we have error type 1 and error type 2. In this case, we have the false positive, which is error type 2. So where the model highlights risks that aren't material, for example. So all false negatives, where something violation in this case are overlooked. Misclassification then is it becomes particularly evident when the model relies on surface level patterns. So, for example, we don't contextualize enough, we don't provide enough material to run, and we don't have enough system and tokens available, for example. Okay, so it's evident when the model relies on surface level, and for instance, for example, assuming any term near, for example, loss, that must imply, for example, financial deterioration. So if loss is not mentioned, the system will not say that this is risky, just because instead of loss, we mention another keyword that might be negative income, for example, instead of loss. Okay, so that makes exactly the same. Such errors then may inflate or the scope unnecessarily or worse, obscure real failures. So let's say, for example, that the management in the notes, it mentioned, oh, we reduce our losses. Okay, so we're reducing losses is perceived, is just detecting the word loss and is flagging that is something negative. Okay, so this is more based on the NLP, on the natural language processing, however. Then we can just follow up with the prompt based. So the output changes with phrasing, as we said, even if intent is identical. Now, as I said, none of the outputs of the same prompt can be the same, for the reason why I can mention the most likely cases. So, for example, if I am prompting in my version of GPT, GPT knows me, okay, because I prompting in the past, it creates a log of all the things that I prompted before. It knows my style. The same question, if you have your own version of GPT, for example, you can click here. You can still see, right? It's sharing. Okay, so what is my own prompting style? Okay, I say your prompting style displays a distinctive combination of intellectual precision, professional skepticism, structured technicality. Mandatory use of British English, prohibition of specific use buzzwords such as groundbreaking, intertwined, clear aversion for sentence starting sentence with infinite construction to ensure what, preference of NLP evading phrases, aiming elevated perplexity, burstiness, and entropy. We'll see what they are later. Stylistic preferences, high editorial standards, strong avoidance of syncopatic tone, sector-specific terminology, structure format, skeptical and forensic mindset, prompt engineering techniques, and so forth. So you see, it knows me very well. So if I prompt now in my GPT, it tries to please me, okay? But if you are starting from scratch, from any other AI that doesn't know you, doesn't know your style, it will start treating you like, I don't know, an 18 years old student, okay? So and then the output will be less professional, less technical, unless you explain what they are. But it can be useful sometimes because, for example, I was struggling to explain sometimes the derivatives, the financial derivatives to advanced students even of the master, for example, you know. And then if I say, explain the concept, let's say impairment, for example, that is more common to everyone. The concept of impairment as per the IFRS to a expert auditor, a student in the first year of accounting bachelor, and to my daughter of 11 years old. The three descriptions should be compared in a table. Okay? Now I explain exactly how the output should be. Can you listen? Can you listen?
Yes, yes.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so look at the explanation. Impairment as per the AIS 36 denotes the condition wherein the asset carrying amount exceeds the recoverable amount, and so forth. First year, impairment happens when the value of something or business owns, like a machine, goes down a lot and does no longer work. Look at the 11 years old daughter. Imagine you bought a toy of 100 pounds and thought you could sell it again later, but it's now old and it's a bit broken, and so forth. So it adapts to your style, to your knowledge. So it tends to use more technical words based on the training that received before. I can see a raised hand. Kamal, please, you have a question? You can unmute yourself if you
Yes,
want.
yes. So
Yeah.
what now I'm
I hope this
understanding is,
makes sense so far.
yes,
Okay.
this is very good
Okay.
perspective. So
Okay.
what I understand is that earlier I used to be thinking that AI means like a program. We can make a program and we can sell the program like we have Tally or we have QuickBooks. But
Yeah. Yeah.
AI is more like a worksheet, which is much more
Yeah.
structured and handles our perceptions. So we cannot really
You need
sell
to
it
know
like a
how to
program.
use it. You need to know how to use it. So everyone says, oh, I'm very skilled in using GPT. I still remember last year I became a member of ACFI myself because I was interested in a free seminar of use of GPT for audit. Then, okay, I got this course that was for free, like this one, and then one in the audience, the presenter looked very skilled, and then at the end they asked the question, okay, so what if I upload a document? I said, no, I never used the advanced version. So how can you train someone if you use just the basic version, if you don't have the advanced capabilities? So you're missing the main part. So it depends on how to use it. So many other people, even last year, for example, during a Ramadan event, I was meeting someone, and then these guys, they said, oh, I made the subscription, it didn't work, I closed after 1 month. I say, you didn't give the time, I believe you are not skilled in the prompting. So that person became upset. I said, oh no, what you are saying, I'm using very skilled. I said, let me show you something that I can do. Okay, so look at this. Okay, just to give you an idea. Okay, so do you know what is Qiskit as a program? You mentioned programming, right? So you can use QuickBooks, you can use other here. By the way, I used for ask what QuickBook can do a few days ago. So a few days ago, I tested some functions. Okay, but for example, the quantum language programming is called Qiskit. Okay, using Qiskit, assuming that now we don't know using Qiskit, so I already pre-trained my model because I uploaded the model, the manual from IBM. Okay, so using Qiskit, program a reverse engineering code that will understand the algorithm behind an appearingly random sequence of 6 numbers just by providing you the sequence of the first 10. Okay, what I just asked, you know what I asked here? I will run the problem here. So in this case, I asked the system to hack an OTP of a bank. Basically start coding using Qiskit, and it starts coding here, and it can start scaling this thing. Of course, we need to be able to read this code and so forth. So when I shared to that person, I said, oh, I need to subscribe again. It depends if you know, first of all, but to prompt this one, you need to know how to ask, because if you will say, oh, can you show me how to hack the code of a bank, the OTP of a bank, and say, no, this is illegal, we will flag you. Okay. But in this case, I genuinely ask a question that, oh, it's treating as numbers here, so you can deceive the system. And then but you need to know that I can use Qiskit in a quantum computing that is much more powerful than the normal one. You need to have available the quantum computer. You need to know that there is an algorithm behind appearing the random OTP and so forth, and you can refine. But you see, that is always the contribution of your knowledge that makes the difference. Understood? Make sense?
Yes.
Yes, it makes sense. So basically, what you're saying is that if we use AI with the knowledge of programming to make a program, it will help us make a better program.
No, I don't know how to program. I created, you saw before the Chrome extension that I shared with you, right? I don't know how to program a JSON code or a CSS or other things. I just ask the system, I ask the system sequential. I say, what is the pattern, how to create a Chrome extension? Then the system say, oh, you need one file, which is an HTML, one file, which is JSON, one file is, okay, I want to create this kind of app, create the files for me. And then it starts creating. Then eventually it didn't work the first time. So I say, what is wrong? I screenshot the error provided by Google. When I do on Chrome, I uploaded that error, and then the system fixed itself. Okay, and basically it was very good because ultimately I was able to deliver that error, screenshot the error, and make it there. Okay, but the same model might be different. So if you're using different model, it's different. For example, I took a screenshot of a picture of the place where I was. I uploaded in Copilot, it told me that I was in Germany. I uploaded in GPT, and it told me that I was in Romania. And I was in Romania, and GPT also told me, oh, this is the typical architectural style of that road. By the way, there is the chain of the pharmacy that is called Dr. Max that is only in that country. So you're definitely in Romania. Okay, so it depends on the training that was received by the model. Make sense? Clear?
Yes, it's very clear. Thanks.
Okay. So we can now move to the technical calls. So as we said, as prompt length increases, the model begins to forget the earlier tokens because it needs to save tokens. The tokens is a big limitation at the moment. But for example, I much more prefer GPT with 128,000 tokens rather than Gemini AI with 1 million tokens, because Gemini AI is mainly trained with blogs in the internet, while GPT indirectly we can see that is trained possibly even with copyrighted material or other things. In fact, Sam Altman asked specifically to the Congress to allow them to use without paying a penny for the materials that they're using. Okay, so this is very important.
How do you find
quality
Grok?
than quality.
How is Grok?
Sorry?
How do you find Grok?
I tested many times, but still the output was not at the level of GPT. But this is my personal test. And to be on the safer side, I always follow a lot of influencers in the topic, even in TikTok. I don't mind sharing with you. And these are testing every day, and every day still they are confirming that based on their test, GPT is still the best. But it's not a commercial advice. It depends on how you feel and what are the tasks you need to do. For example, if you just need to run quantitative analysis, even DeepSeek is very good. But if you need to ask a question on Taiwan, DeepSeek will say, I cannot answer this question, okay, because it's Chinese-based, so it will not answer. So it depends on the training received by the model. For example, now the model which is developed in the UAE is called Falcon. Still, it's laggard compared to the others, but still it might be considered safer by the authorities, for example, in the UAE, because they need to process internal data. So you can install that model remotely in your computer, you can run it, and it will be very reliable because it's based in the UAE. But these are analyses that I cannot answer properly. So I'm just making you some examples, and I suggest you to train yourself and test as much as you can. So we said, the model forgets to start forgetting the earlier tokens. So for example, if I'm instructed very well not to use some keywords like navigating or that are usually used by GPT. So it's evident it was generated by GPT. And it starts using it after some time because it keeps forgetting. This phenomenon is called context decay. So that means that even well-structured instructions at the beginning of the prompt may be overwritten by less relevant tokens near the end. So it's a structural weakness that all these transformers, they have in their architecture. So they need to save tokens. If we had unlimited tokens, we could have asked to write whatever till the end. Even an entire book, it can be written eventually with one prompt. That is not possible, a manual that can be interpreted. This can be possible. But for example, let's imagine if you have a manual of 5,000 pages. Are you sure that the model will really read it in full? It's impossible. So ultimately, I found an alternative because I turned a PDF into a TXT file, which is saving a lot of tokens. So in that case, it might be more reliable as well. But these are all strategies that you need to test. Then let's focus on some things that we anticipated before, which is entropy and the misjudgment. Okay, so the temperature, as we said, is the setting directly influence the model's confidence and and variability. High temperature, for example, between the 82% to 100%, leads usually the model to explore token choices further from the most likely path. So if you don't want to be obvious, you can increase the temperature. However, in audit, this is unsuitable, as we already said, because much setting amplify entropy. So we cannot allow and afford that the system will use synonyms, because if we need to use the word expense, we cannot use the word cost, because cost will include assets, as we said before. So we cannot allow entropy. We need to use the technical words with their specific meaning. So the meaning that the output may appear fluent, but it's conceptually misaligned, it's conceptually wrong for our purposes. So a flag raised under high entropy is neither reliable or replicable in that case. So this is why assurance functions should operate under very low temperature, below 30%, maximum 30%, to preserve usually output stability. Okay, so the misjudgment then can be avoided. In terms of practical controls against hallucination, as we said, we need to, first of all, have the knowledge, okay, because we need to be able to read what is generated and to judge if it's correct or not. This might look obvious, but it's not so obvious because people now start to trust the model too much, and then they say, oh, it's written by GPT. Okay, so what does it mean? If it's written by GPT, even more you need to double check. Okay, so it's just GPT is a facilitator in terms of typing fast or helping you to brainstorm, but you always need to double check the information. So this is obvious for me, but not for example, for kids at school or for unexperienced people that are using AI. Okay, but now it might be obvious for you as well. Okay, so I will try to ask you to reconsider what you wrote with GPT. You need to test, you need to verify the references, you need to verify everything. So, for example, we can avoid bug queries, for example, use constraint phrasing, such as, let's say, based on the IFRS number 9, identify non-classification only. So in that case, if you also upload the IFRS 9 as a backup and ask the system to rely only on that document, then in that case, it will be, reliable, much more reliable. Not 100% reliable, but still it's reliable. So break request into smaller prompts, as we say, to remove the task. Like you have something in Arabic, ask the system first to translate, then process the analysis in English, and then you translate back again. You save tokens. And this enforces clarity and reduces usually token drift that will lead to the system to select documents that were completely different than those that should have been considered. So also reduce the temperature to use sampling that limits the model creative latitude. So in this case, we use the segmentation. Then, why behavior matters in control functions? Okay, as I said, you need to be skilled to use it properly because, all the people that say, I'm very expert, say, okay, let's compare. Even as soon as they say, I'm using the free version, I say, you are not skilled. Not because I'm proud of myself or spending a lot of money, but because I know that the basic model is using an old version, which is not the updated one. So the results are much less reliable. I have my daughters that are using my version of GPT, which is not even Teams, which is not even Plus, is the Teams, is the most advanced one. And they always say, oh, our classmates are using Gemini AI, And I say, the results are so stupid, so they are so basic. I say, of course, I'm paying the full version, so of course you have better results, okay? So it's like driving, one car or 1 liter and a supercar or 5 liter with a V10 engine. Of course, it's different, right? And of course, you cannot be expert pilot if you're still driving a 1 liter car, okay, engine car. Okay, so it's impossible. The first thing is this one. And then secondly, if you are able to contextualize, if you are able to mention the keywords that they will help the model to retrieve the documents that were used to in the pre-training, and they are the most relevant to that specific context. In that case, it will be much more. So as we say, the behavior matters. So the audit and assurance rely on three things, for example, on the practicability and verified logic, which is not in the scope of GPT models. So GPT fails then to guarantee and ensure that any of these, unless tightly constrained, like we say, use and refer only to our model, use and refer only these manuals, and so forth. Accepting its output then without oversight is not innovation at all. It's an operational risk then. So you should ask in the risk management framework also the use of GPT, unaware use of GPT. So now it's becoming part of the, of all the IT audit and other aspects. Okay. So is there any question on this part again, or we can move to part 3? I hope we'll not run out of time, so I will try to be a little bit quicker, but of course, the most relevant things I try to explain already. So let's focus on AI
we can
tools.
move to.
Okay, perfect. So AI tools and control functions. So continuous control system with GPT embedded interfaces. So enterprise systems now integrate sometimes themselves AI to suggest and perform control actions, or approving transactions, or tagging anomalies. For example, it can recognize that you misspelled something, or did not double check the balance of something else, for example. But GPT style tools embedded in the ERPs, in the enterprise resource planning, increase speed, but compromise transparency, because you don't know how they were trained themselves, which kind of document they were used to, for example, generate the notes of a financial statement, let's say. So when the decisions are not rule triggered, but inferred linguistically, because then in that case, the linguistic, the semantic will prevail than the context itself, the audit trail becomes, let's say, opaque, not transparent at all. So you may see that GPT flagged that risk, but you don't know why it was flagged as a risk, because this is the proprietary knowledge of the ERP itself. So they don't want to share with you the model and the training, because it costs money to train, it costs time to train a model. Okay, so the result is a control layer that functions in real time, but it's no longer auditable in reverse. So eventually you need to try to find yourself why it might be risky, and you need to double check if it's truly risky. Then now we have, okay, so we have this one, the workflow. Okay, so in this case, the workflow integrity and validation. Let's move to validation. So let's say, okay, so the validation first. So where GPT flags something and a human disagree, like us, we say, oh, you are saying something which is wrong. Oh, I'm sorry. And then, okay, let me know, let me rephrase. And then I say, no, you don't have to rephrase. You need to refer to this reference. In that case, it will be completely different. So, but once the AI is allowed to validate itself entries, humans shift from operators to interpreters. Okay, so you need to be interpreter of the thing. So it will be even more tricky, because you might not have double checked the origin of the transaction itself. So this is dangerous, especially if the human review is assumed but not formalized, especially if the human is not used that writing and generating the transaction themselves. So worse when AI makes a silent validation. So you don't even realize it's already validated by the AI and you progress. In this case, it becomes difficult to trace or contact the errors because it changes the words yourself. And so it might change from expense to cost and you don't even realize. And in that case, you need to read all the documents once again after being processed by the AI. So let's move to the workflow. So in legacy system, workflows are traceable, approval steps, threshold, justification. GPT integration breaks this process. The model produces output based on prior token probability, which we don't know how it was done, not logical derivation. There is no internal memory or explain why it's done in that way because it's proprietary model that it will never be shared. It's the know-how of, for example, OpenAI or Google or whatever. If the model approved an entry based on a linguistic similarity, we don't know because eventually they would use cost instead of expense, and it was already approved automatically because it's considered a synonym by the model. So in this case, it's not a process, but it's becoming mimicking your own wording and your own language. So in all these logs, it will appear at a valid decision point, but we cannot be sure, actually. And so the audit trail will be compromised sometimes. Then we will continue with the embedded logic that cannot be verified. So the control functions in this case were designed on the assumption that behavior would be consistent or coherent in this case. So GPT might sound very professional. It uses a lot of words because it was trained eventually with a document that was very, very verbose and very technical. It may even replicate the tone of an internal policy, but doesn't mean that it follows the policy itself. Okay, so it might use very technical word like a lawyer, which is start to use hereinafter and start formatting the things properly. But it doesn't mean that if a document is well formatted or is just following the form and using lawyerism, is well written or is according to the law. It might be completely wrong anyway. So even with the same data and prompt, as we say, the model may approve today and flag tomorrow. So it depends. So if you try, for example, to mark an assignment, let's say, which is not possible because usually it breaches the confidentiality. So the model will say, oh, this is a very good script. Okay. But if you say, no, you need to be tougher. Oh, yes, I can fail the script. Okay, so just 1 minute before you say that the script was very good, now you're failing it. Okay, so this is quite funny, but it depends on how you contextualize once again. So that consistency alone disqualifies it from the primary control function that we have that should be related on logical instead of predictive or contextualized things. So let's move on. So design principles for AI augmented control systems. So this system might be embedded with guardrails. So first, constrain the prompt. So AI must not guess. You can use, in this case, in the prompt, sentences like based on the policy, based on the law, based on the principles. Based on the principles, upload it now. So you constrain the model to use only that specific resource. Okay, so and then you can say, okay, return a specific output in a table, compare the table, so you will see everything structured. The second tip is to fix the temperature, as we said, let's say 0.2, that means 20%, maximum 30%, or even lower, even 1%, 10%. Okay, so third, which is the force the model to output a confidence score, it requires the viewer to override the log. So for example, that is what I did before. So when I share with you the Chrome extension of prompting. Okay, then let's move on. AI as a supplement, okay, not a substitute. As we said, it's a co-pilot. Even the Microsoft call it co-pilot, not the main pilot. Why? Because it's an assistant. It's not replacing us. Okay, think of GPT as a mirror. Okay, so like it reflects what it has seen before and what is required. It has no conception of compliance, for example, or duty of care or internal control. So it simulates the appearance of a competent decision maker. So, but in terms of words that are used in the in the sentence, which is dangerous if mistaken for actual judgment. So you might be very convincing because you can talk like a lawyer to a peasant, for example. The peasant will say, "Oh, this is very skilled lawyer," but you might say nonsense. Okay, at the meantime, you will gain reputation just because you are saying something. You are wearing the suit. You are speaking very verbosely, you are very educated, you look very nice, but you're saying things that have no sense or it might be completely misguiding. The roads that are working, if they need to steal money, they will come in a suit, they will be very polite, so no one will notice them. Okay, so this is the same mechanism. Yeah. Okay. Then I believe we can move to part 4. So we will allow last, let's say 20 minutes for a Q&A session. So we have part 4 and part 5. So in part 4 now we will focus on professional judgment and ethical conflict. So I just wrote an article that was submitted in a very good journal related to this one. So basically I asked GPT itself, it is considered a sophist. In the ancient Greece, sophists were considered very bad because they were very eloquent. So they were using a lot of good words, but actually they were convincing people by using a fake logic, not something that is truly demonstrated. So just by being eloquent and you might claim that you are an expert, but you might not be. So the same is GPT is using eloquent words because it was taken by different other things. But
Hi, I
Sorry, you
think you
are
are
muted.
muted.
Yeah.
hi, can you listen now? Can
Yeah.
you listen to me now? I don't know why
Yes,
it was
yes.
muted suddenly. I did not mute myself. Okay, so as I said, uh, GPT now, the auditors are accountable for the final opinion, right? But what if GPT drafts large sections of one report? The model cannot provide justification. If you cannot provide justification, if you didn't write yourself, if you didn't explore all the documents yourself, only if an auditor simply reviews just the GPT outputs and sign off, they are relying on an unverifiable probabilistic tool. And we know that now it's much more concerning than what you might have thought before this training today. Okay, should the report contain fabricated or misplaced reasoning? Responsibility still sits within the human reviewer. So you are ultimately the one that prompted. You are the one that signed off. Okay, so be careful, please. So the lack of transparency is how the outputs are generated fundamentally breaks the chain of accountability. So we need to be very careful. So let's continue a little bit. So we have the role, okay, the expert role and overrides, so independence. So I will move to the independence first. So we already discussed this. Okay, so let's say the role of expert overrides. So we say we need to be so skilled that we'll be able to judge and discover if something does not make sense. Okay, an override is not simply a correction in this case, it's a real formal act of judgment from your side. Okay, so in this case, we need to be very expert in this sense. So the auditors must then document why an AI output was adjusted or disregarded. So you need to double check if you are truly correct or the AI is correct. It might be that you made an oversight, you had an oversight. Okay, so, but if there is no log of overrides, there is no threshold for intervention and no requirements to flag the generated input. Let's move on. Ethical principles. Okay, so the International Ethics Standards Board for Accountants is now, it can be compared, for example, to a GPT. So you can upload the principles in GPT and you can ask GPT to use them. So according to the IESBA code, professionals must act with integrity. They should maintain objectivity and apply the due care. So GPT cannot assess all these concepts, none of them. It can only simulate the language used to describe them. So the model does not know what constitutes material misstatement in that sense. So it does not evaluate the context. As we say, we are the ones that are contextualizing. We do not contextualize well. Wrong documents will be selected to produce your output. It does not exercise skepticism as well. So any use of such system in decision support must acknowledge this fluently, does not imply understanding. So eloquence is not itself logical. Okay. Then let's continue here. Mitigate AI augmented processes. So where AI is used, actually, its output should be clearly and excluded from evidence until independently verified. So you can generate the content, but then please, before uploading in the document, just flag it and verify before accepting. Internal protocols must define how much AI-generated content can influence decisions. So there are huge, big law firm and even audits. The big four, they are starting using it, and they are making redundant a lot of auditors for this. But still, they need to be careful as well. They need to create processes that they need to disclose when the AI was used, and disclose when someone validated the AI and who validated the AI. Because otherwise, we can say it's very easy to say to blame the AI, the machine. Oh, the AI made a mistake. Yeah, but someone should be accountable for this. Okay. Then, ultimately, judgment cannot be automated. So, okay, so it requires interpretation, experience, contextualized reasoning. So, no worries. Your job as accountant and auditor will not be easily replaced until, of course, my model will be developed. So, but it might take time. So GPT offers none of these things. Experience, contextualization, interpretation, not offered by GPT. It simulates confidence, but it has no understanding at all of the fairness. So it's creating numbers that they are processed. Okay, it has no understanding of fairness, independence, or risk impact. For example, no matter how persuasive its output, it must be treated as a tool, not a decision maker. It's a support tool, a co-pilot. This, this is the reinforcement of the critical idea that the judgment is not an output, but is still a responsibility of the humans. I wrote a book, the first book that I wrote, I call it artificially original. Why? Because of course the output is artificial, but it depends on how skilled you are to understand, to anticipate what will be the answer, on contextualizing, on uploading the right document. There's a lot of difference between an output generated by one person and another person. So one might be completely out, and then everyone will say, oh, you see, GPT generates crap. Okay. And the output generated by an expert person that knows how the system works exactly, knows the limitation, and makes action like contextualizing, adding documents, training the model, using specific tokens, do not waste tokens, and so forth. So these are all things that should be included in your thinking when you are prompting. Okay, I hope it makes sense. So we are moving to the last part, regulatory response, which is also very, very important. So we are dealing with now the specific, principles. The ISA 315 requires that auditors understand that the entity and assess where material misstatement may arise. So the auditor, not the AI, okay? So if AI models like GPT are used to process the data or, for example, generate commentary, the auditor must evaluate their influence. Actually, GPT cannot explain how it reached a conclusion. So we need to try to eventually ask GPT what was the process step by step before giving us the output. In this case, in this sense, it might be a little bit more reliable. That makes its output then incompatible also with ISA 540, which requires the auditors to challenge the basis of accounting estimate. a model cannot justify at all its logic, the track changes, or reproduce even conclusions, simply cannot support assertion level audit evidence in general. Okay, so we mentioned already the IESBA. So in this case, the IESBA stated clearly, the AI may support the judgment, but it must never replace it. The ethics code then stressed the importance of independence and objectivity, the principles under threat when auditors rely on GPT. They are creating recommendations that are not truly reliable or relevant. Particularly concerning this case is the risk of the subconscious influence, where the fluency and confidence of GPT output is mistaken for reliability. So something which is fluent, is not reliable. Okay, it's not automatically reliable. So ethical safeguards then demand that outputs be critically challenged, not simply reviewed in this case. So you need to have the knowledge yourself. You cannot say, oh, you know, I'm not an auditor, but I can audit a company. Why? Because I can upload the documents, I can upload the manuals, I can upload the principles, and then I can ask GPT to do it for me. It's not the same. You need experience. You need to contextualize. You need to use the right keywords. You don't know if the right keywords are used or if it used the prompt drift that went to other documents that are not reliable anymore. Okay, and this is the output. Then AI governance in financial assurance. We almost completed with just 3 slides. Governance of AI in assurance is not about algorithmic, optimization, for example. It's about process integrity. This includes traceability. Every AI output must be linked to a clear prompt, as we said, a timestamp, and a system state, which is not usually always available in all the models. Okay, so auditability then. Logs should also show the AI version used. If you are using the free version or the advanced version, the reliability is different, so the level of attention might be different as well. Lastly, the responsibility. Only certified professionals can approve decisions. AI should support, not conceal or distort, so we cannot expect that a person that is not an auditor at all can replace this function, okay? And there are certifications now that they are certifying this, although sometimes I do not agree entirely in certification. I've seen people that are very expert, very skilled, but they cannot pass the exam because just they do not learn the question bank. In that case, the certification becomes useless. Okay, so this is my perspective, however. Okay, then we can move to a summary then. So constructing a governance framework for the AI use. So we need prompt logging, output labeling, override threshold, and audit rate embedding. So these are the, let's say, the 4 aspects that should be considered for prompt logging. We need to archive prompts and setting for future review. We need to know which version was used, who traced that one, which kind of override was performed. The output labeling clearly mark AI generated versus use on verified content all the time, if possible, to be honest with ourselves. Then eventually with the customer, we might remove, but for our internal purposes, we need to see who is responsible of what. And ultimately, anyway, the auditor is responsible because he's signing the documents. Trigger human review when confidence falls below a specific threshold of override. And audit traders include GPT outputs in structured logs, not in free text. We need to prepare some prompts that are very strong, and then we can rely on them. So a practical governance framework then requires this multi-layered approach. Last but not least, regulatory tension, the technology adoption and control perseveration. So there is an undeniable push from management, industry bodies, tech vendors in the UAE, from the government massively. We need to be AI led by everything in the government, in everything. So we need to be the expert in AI. So towards AI adoption then and assurance. So however, the standards have not yet evolved enough at the same speed. So regulators now, they face a huge dilemma: how to accommodate advanced tools while preserving the audit trail, the judgment, the quality, the ethical responsibility, and so forth. GPT system, in this case, introduced an unaccountable inference. Okay, so it's not logical, it's not deterministic, it's inference into the process then. So that requires full traceability anyway. So the process should be the same. We can be aided by the system only in some task. The result then is a procedural drift somehow that unless that is tightly governed, AI might change. Okay. As a summary of what we discussed today, so I hope you found this session really relevant and useful for your own work in particular. As I said, I try to be very specific, especially at the beginning. Now you might be a little bit tired. Just my personal reflection. So far does not center the model itself because those that are regulating, they are not fully aware about most of the things that I discussed today. Any tool that produces untraceable output, lacks of reproducibility, and or cannot be constrained in the decision, should be treated as only advisory, not as the decision maker. Okay, so unless its role is defined, bounded, and governed in specific function. Let's say, for example, the bot of a bank website. In that case, it's okay. Choose among these topics. Okay, you choose the topic, you progress, and then once you want something which is not in the list, I say, oh, you know what? Now you need to talk to someone. Okay, so I cannot help you anymore. Okay, then as a professional, then we need to regulate that invisible end at the moment, not only to admire it and to think it's magic. If nothing is magic, it's the output of calculation, not even understanding, calculation. Okay, so I believe I have done for now. So if you have any specific question, I'm here to answer. Do you have any questions? Was it all clear? I'm not sure it was all clear, but I tried to do my best, to explain all the things as much as I could.
Alessio, I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So now we are giving any kind of commands and the prompts, what we are going to give it. Can it take it from the Excel perspective as well and give us the formulas to establish it inside?
Sorry, can you repeat? I could not hear you very well.
Yeah. So what I'm asking is when we are uploading an Excel format file with the connection of Excel sheets from one sheet to another, does it download it with the same connections again? And the links will be available from one sheet to another, from P&L to balance sheet, income sheet, and the cash flows?
If you are referring to a relational database,
yes,
I'm not sure. Okay, I'm not sure, and I can tell you probably not. Okay, probably because it depends on the version you're using. It depends if you are explaining that there are relationships, and it depends if the system recognizes the relationship. It depends on all these things. Then, additionally, I really ask you to avoid uploading documents in GPT because it's a cloud and it is confidential data. You are not safe. Okay, so you might spread, news that they are there. So eventually you can ask GPT to develop the functions that you have to use to process and analyze the things. So it will guide you step by step. For example, I asked to generate macros in Visual Basic to process some data, so you don't have to feed the cloud with your document. You can ask the model to generate the function, and then this function can be safely run in your personal remote computer. Okay?
Understood.
Am I answered the question?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Okay.
It was very informative. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. So what about Ildar? You need to ask a specific question?
More or less.
I cannot hear you.
Yeah, more or less. So can you hear me now?
Your voice is very, very low, but I can understand probably.
Yeah. So can you please explain once again the concept of temperature regulation?
Okay, so in the models, sometimes you can choose the temperature. Let me see if I can share here. So first of all, I'll try to close this one. there are some chances here. Let me share the screen so you will see. You can choose the temperature somehow. I will share the screen again. Okay, you can see the screen. For example, I will open Jan. This is a remote AI, okay? In this remote AI here, you can choose the model. So for example, this one, I will update later. Anyway, so you can choose the one, you can choose here the model size. For example, you can choose the model that you're using. Here among this one, there is also, you can also select Falcon. You see, Falcon is trained with 5.8 gigabyte. But for example, compared to Llama, which is almost 40 gigabytes, you can imagine that the amount of documents used to train this model is much less, very skilled, probably. But for example, this one is trained in a lot of other languages. For example, if you want to prompt in French, Spanish, and Portuguese, it might be very good compared to others that are generic ones. And then you can choose the model. And once you choose the model, you can start prompting. And here now is updating. There are some things that you can do in the model and so forth, the inference that you can choose. You see, you can choose the temperature. Can you see that? If you choose the temperature very low, the content will use only very frequent words. So if I say here, describe the costs in a financial statement, I'm using Llama. And I could use it even eventually without the internet, because this is running in my GPU. Okay, so I'm preparing a very generic prompt. Of course, this will not be instant like the others. Now I have a quite good computer. It's a 9 with 32 gigabytes of memory, so it's good. But this is starting becoming very, very accurate because it's using technical words. But if I use a very high temperature, and now I ask the same question, let me ask the same question. It might start using synonyms. Okay, so you see rent and utilities, insurance, operating costs, and so forth is not as structured as it was before because it's not using, for example, cost of goods sold. It's using synonyms sometimes. You know, it's like explaining to a kid instead of explaining to an expert because it's starting using and deviating from the most relevant documents to create variance, to create a difference in what you say. Otherwise, it will be boilerplate, it will be expected, it will be predictable output. Make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So you see here, you can use more or less token. If you want to be very quick, you can reduce the maximum tokens used for very simple tasks. So if you want to say 4 plus 4 equals, and then you say explain step by step. This is a mathematical formula. It will be very quick if you are using minimizing the number of tokens because you don't need to do anything else. Okay. But if you need to process many other things, so presence of penalty, frequency penalty, and so forth, you need to start working and playing with these functions here. Model setting, prompt template, engine setting, number of GPU, context length, and you can start working with all these additional things. Make sense?
So we can download Llama?
You can download all Llama for free. You can download the Jan for free. You can download GPT for all. You can download the LM Studio, and you can install in your computer. So, for example, when GPT is down, because it's not working, the cloud is stuck, or there is no internet, you can still use the AI in your computer without anything. But as I said, for example, in Jan, as we say it here, for example, you need to download the model. So in this case, I downloaded Llama and I downloaded Falcon. Why? Because these are Falcon when I need to process something related to the UAE, and Llama because it's the most relevant and it's not Chinese. Because I prefer not to have Chinese models because they might be biased and restrictive with censorship sometimes. Okay? So, but you can download them all. So, first of all, you need a very powerful computer. Otherwise, the output will be very slow. And then you need to select the model. You cannot download them all. Otherwise, you need, I don't know how many terabytes of your computer to use. Once you install the model, then you can start prompting with that model. Okay, you can select the model that you choose. So for example, here I can choose Llama or Falcon. So let me use Falcon. It will I'll start coding with Falcon. You see in the bottom, Falcon is used. Make sense? You don't need internet. And it's for free. All of these are for free.
Understood. Yeah.
Clear.
Can you share your presentation? Presentation was very good.
Yes, sure. I will share it now here in the chat. I don't have any problem. 1 second, okay? I will see if I can add it. Actually, I'm not sure I can add it. So let me create a QR code so you can send me your email. Eventually, I will email. So just allow me 1 second, okay? Google Forms. I'm creating a Google form that you can screenshot eventually later. Okay, blank form, mailing list. Okay, so mailing list, I will call it mailing list for slides. Okay, so and then I will select this one. I will say only short paragraph. Write your email. Now, this is the only required one in publishing it. Anyone with the link? I will share the screen, no worries. Okay. Okay, this. Okay. Answer. Okay. Publish it. Okay. Okay. Copy. Okay. I will share the link now. Second. I'm sharing the screen. I created this form. Now I created, you see, for example, I created another Google Chrome extension here that generates the QR code here. So if you can scan the QR code and you will share with me, I will receive the responses and I will email you I will email you the presentation. Okay. Did you manage to scan the form? Hello?
Yes, I got it.
Okay, perfect. So just type your name and email, and then I will share everything with you. Perfect. I've already received the first one. Okay. I will keep receiving later. Okay. Now for privacy, I will remove this one. Okay. Anyone that needs that code, we'll put it once again here. Okay. I hope you enjoyed the session and you can keep in touch.
Share the link
Yes, sure.
in the group, please?
Yes, I can also share this link. You're right. I thought about that one. I will stop sharing then. I click it here. Perfect. The link is also there. I will email to all of you, just copy pasting the link, the emails, and I will share with you the presentation instantly. Okay. Any further questions? I believe it was a very intense session anyway.
Thank you, sir.
We
Thank
had
you very
no
much, sir.
breaks. We had no breaks. So
Yes.
I believe we can finish 10 minutes earlier. It's not a big problem. Thank you, Aisha. Reading just the comments here. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. Okay, I hope to see you soon, and enjoy your evening, now night actually, and
Thank you,
let's
sir.
go
Thanks
to
a lot.
sleep. Okay, bye for now. Thank you,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye.
Thank you, Alessio.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.